So, all right, let's talk about this. Um, there is a housing shortage
Yeah.
in America, right? Um, so what does that mean for the average person, and how does that affect the real estate market over the next 5 years?
Well, that means that, it's like anything else, supply and demand. The supply is low, the demand is high. So that's why rents go up so
So
much.
why is there a housing shortage though?
Man, there's been so much politicization of housing and real estate, and it's difficult to build. Like you look at some of the markets where it's most pronounced, New York, California. There's this thing called NIMBY. You ever heard of NIMBY? Not in my backyard. People say, yeah, we need affordable housing, but don't build it. Don't build it on my street, right? And so what that does is it disturbs the real estate market for that particular city. And we just by and large have not built enough moderate and middle income or affordable housing. So, you know, millionaires don't have any problem. They could buy whatever they want to buy, right? Or live wherever they want to live. We're talking about the rank and file public, um, workers, teachers, ambulance drivers,
Sanitation workers.
sanitation workers, the rank and file public who have good jobs, they work hard, but there's been such an escalation in the cost of rents because of the supply and demand disruption that these rents are off the table. I mean, if 4 million units of housing hit the market tomorrow, all rents would drop, but it takes years and years to build it. That's why, we have this condition because it's hard to just increase the supply quickly. You have to have an alignment of politics, of market forces like real estate, interest rates. Interest rates are out of control right now, so it makes it very hard to build. Sometimes you have construction costs going off the rails. Like everyone heard about, what was going on with supply chain disruptions,
yeah.
last year. So you have all these things that can throw that equation off and make it hard to produce housing. So, right now it's come to a critical point, and particularly elected officials have to get off of the rubric where they want to, almost politicize housing, make all real estate developers evil, all real estate is bad. We have a lot of that narrative coming out of certain communities and certain cities, but it doesn't help to do anything because people still cannot find good housing. And the only way to get it is to build it, right? We have to upzone. A lot of communities don't want to go through rezonings and upzone. They say, oh, we don't want that high building here. Well, okay, that's your opinion, but we have people sleeping in shelters, right? We have people who really need housing. And I firmly believe that housing security for most families is financial security. Because if people have a roof over their head, there's more money they have to dedicate to healthcare, to education, to other, well-being of the family, taking care of their elderly, everything else that families have to deal with. But if 60, 70% of your income is used to pay rent, cuts out a lot of options, which you could do otherwise.
Yeah, when you talk about upzoning, I was immediately thinking a city I used to work in New Rochelle. We're seeing a lot of towers go up there. And I'm wondering when you're building units and you're adding that to the portfolio, what's the allocation that has to be affordable housing? And your obviously your expertise in the field, are you seeing people just meeting the minimum or people exceeding the amount if there is a certain allocation you have to have?
Well, first of all, let me say this. The mayor of New Rochelle and that administration has done it absolutely correctly. They have embraced real estate development and they've used market forces and capitalist forces and real estate developers to help bring that city into the modern era, and the wave of development that there is impressive, right? But in other areas, it's not so easy because you have a lot of differing opinions, a lot of, just fights over what should be built, could be built. We don't want that tower here. I think to answer your second question, generally, different municipalities have different requirements about how much affordable housing should be built. And usually what happens is it's tied to some type of tax abatement or some type of government funding that will be provided to the project to build it. We had a scenario recently in Harlem, right, where we're very active, we do a lot. And a city council person turned down a developer on 145th Street who bought land and only was required to do 20% affordable housing. But he wanted to upzone the project and do 900 units. He went as far as 50% affordable housing She still voted it down.
Why?
Wow.
Politics. So you think about it, that's the wrong move, right? I mean, that's 450 families who are not going to have clean, decent, energy efficient, affordable housing for themselves, right? It's an absolute loss, but we see too much of that these days.
So let me ask you this. Well, two questions. How do real estate developers get paid?
Last.
One word answer.
Well, so what I mean by
But
that,
you get paid like twice though, right?
no, real estate developers take all the risks. So what do you mean twice?
So you get, all right, well, you can explain it better than me, obviously, but from my understanding, you get a part of the development fee,
Yes.
right? And then if you have equity in it, then you can get that as some level of compensation as well.
Right. So the equity that you invest would just be returned to you, right? The equity is, so when you do a project, let's say, like when you buy a house, right? You go to the bank and the bank says, okay, I want to buy this house. They'll say, okay, Mr. Livingston, you have to put down 20%. That's your equity. Same thing when you do a development deal. The bank isn't going to give you 100% of the deal. You have to bring some equity. Usually, depending on how large the project is, you get into a scenario where the equity is coming from a third party investor, a limited partner, which is usually a real estate private equity fund. It could be an insurance company or some just investor that has a lot of capital and they have to invest it because they need to generate returns on their capital to pay pensioners or to pay out insurance claims or whatever it is. So the equity gets returned. But to answer your question specifically, a real estate developer will get fees, right? So you get a developer fee. You could get distributions based off of refinancing the project because let's say, you have a project, you do it after 10 years or whatever, rents go up, you have one level of debt, you've been paying down that mortgage, you could refinance, put a new mortgage on, take some capital out. But more regularly, what happens is once you put the building into service, every month there's cash flow, right? Remember NOI? You have your NOI, you pay your debt, and what remains is cash flow that can be distributed to partners.